Sarah Chen spent her last $50 on a rotting bungalow everyone said was cursed. Her brother laughed in her face. Her ex-husband called her insane. But when she pried open the floorboards in the master bedroom, she discovered she'd inherited $230 million in stolen Hollywood secrets and a target on her back from one of America's most powerful families. 3 weeks earlier, Sarah was sleeping in her 1998 Honda Civic with her 8-year-old daughter Mia in the back seat. The girl clutched a worn, stuffed rabbit that smelled like the strawberry shampoo from the shelter. Sarah had exactly $73 in her checking account. Her waitressing job at the diner had ended when the owner sold the business. The new management wanted younger staff. Mia had missed 4 days of school because Sarah couldn't afford the $15 field trip fee and was too ashamed to send her daughter while other kids went to the science museum. Every morning, Sarah walked Mia to the school entrance, watched her disappear inside, then returned to the car to search classified ads on her cracked phone screen. The eviction notice from their studio apartment was 2 months old. Sarah had tried everything. Her brother Richard lived in a 4-bedroom house in Pasadena, but told her she needed to learn responsibility. Her parents had died when she was 19. Her ex-husband Daniel was 3 years behind on child support, living somewhere in Nevada with his new girlfriend. On a Wednesday morning in March, Sarah received a call from a lawyer named Bernard Rothstein. His voice crackled through her phone speaker as she sat in the diner parking lot, engine running to keep the heat on for Mia. "Miss Chen, I'm calling regarding the estate of Margaret Brennan. She passed away last month at 94. You've been named as a beneficiary." Sarah's hands trembled. She didn't know any Margaret Brennan. "There must be a mistake," she said quietly. "No mistake. Mrs. Brennan was quite specific. She left you a property in Laurel Canyon, a bungalow at 8247 Wonderland Avenue." Sarah's throat tightened. "Why would she leave me anything? I don't know her." "Mrs. Brennan worked as a housekeeper for your grandmother in the 1960s. She never forgot your grandmother's kindness during a difficult period in her life. The property requires immediate decision. There are back taxes of $47. If unclaimed, it goes to the state next week." Sarah closed her eyes. $47. She had 73 total. "What's the property worth?" Bernard Rothstein paused. "Miss Chen, I'll be honest. The structure is condemned. No electricity, no plumbing. The neighborhood has repeatedly petitioned to demolish it. Your brother Richard was also contacted as he's your closest male relative, per Mrs. Brennan's instructions to try family first. He declined immediately. He said, and I quote, 'Only an idiot would waste money on that death trap.'" Sarah felt heat rise in her chest. Richard. Always Richard with his perfect life and his judgment. "The area has appreciated significantly," Rothstein continued. "A developer offered Mrs. Brennan $5,000 for the land 3 years ago. She refused, but the structure itself would cost over $100,000 to renovate. Most would demolish and rebuild. $5,000. Sarah could survive 2 months on $5,000. Find a new job. Get Mia back in school properly. I'll take it, she said. "Miss Chen, I'll take it. How do I pay the taxes?" 2 days later, Sarah held a key to 8247 Wonderland Avenue. She'd paid the $47 in back taxes and 3 more in processing fees. She had $23 left to her name. Richard called that evening. "You're even stupider than I thought. That place is worthless. You just threw away $50. Sarah ended the call. The next morning she drove Mia to school, then navigated the winding roads of Laurel Canyon. The address led to a narrow driveway choked with weeds. The bungalow sat back from the road, hidden by overgrown eucalyptus and pepper trees. Sarah's stomach dropped. The structure was smaller than her old studio apartment. White paint peeled in long strips, exposing gray wood underneath. 2 windows were boarded up. The front door hung crooked on rusted hinges. Graffiti marked the west wall. "Demon House" in red spray paint. She approached slowly. The porch groaned under her weight. The key, stuck in the lock, but finally turned. The door scraped open. The smell hit her first. Mold, dust, and something else. Something old and sweet, like perfume that had gone rancid. Afternoon light filtered through cracks in the boards, creating prison bar shadows across the floor. The interior was a single large room with a kitchenette along one wall and 2 doors at the back, probably a bedroom and bathroom. Trash littered the floor. Beer cans, fast food wrappers, a sleeping bag that looked some decades old. Sarah walked carefully, testing each floorboard. Most were solid, but several near the center felt soft, water-damaged. She opened the first door at the back, a bathroom. The toilet was brown with rust. The sink had cracked clean through. But the vintage tiles on the wall were intact, tiny hexagons in mint green and black. Expensive ones. The second door led to the bedroom. Sarah stopped in the doorway. This room was different. Someone had cared for it. The walls were papered in, faded gold damask. A built-in vanity stood along one wall, its mirror clouded but unbroken. The floorboards here were wide planks of dark hardwood, warped but still beautiful. She stepped inside. The floor creaked loudly. Then she noticed it. A section of the hardwood near the vanity had a different grain pattern. 4 boards, each about 6 inches wide, that didn't quite match the rest. Sarah knelt down. She ran her fingers along the seam. There was a gap, almost invisible, but there. She tried to pry it up with her fingernails but couldn't get purchase. She returned to her car, dug through the trunk, and found a screwdriver from the emergency kit Daniel had left behind. Back in the bedroom, Sarah wedged the screwdriver into the gap. The boards resisted, then suddenly popped up. Not nailed. They'd been placed loose. Beneath was a cavity about 2 feet deep. Sarah's heart hammered. She pulled out her phone and turned on the flashlight. Metal glinted in the darkness. She reached down and touched cold steel. A box. She gripped the edges and lifted. Heavy. At least 30 pounds. Sarah set it on the floor and sat back, breathing hard. The box was made of brushed steel with a combination lock on the front. No rust. This had been sealed, protected from moisture. She tried the lock. It didn't budge. Sarah examined the box from all angles. On the bottom, taped to the metal, was a yellowed envelope. She peeled it off carefully. Inside was a single sheet of paper, handwritten in shaky cursive. To whoever finds this, the combination is the date she died. Month, day, year. 2 digits each. The truth belongs to the world now. Margaret Brennan, February 2024. Sarah stared at the words. She died. Who died? Margaret Brennan had been 94. If she wrote this in February 2024, just before she passed, she'd been lucid enough to hide something valuable and leave instructions. Sarah pulled out her phone and searched Margaret Brennan Los Angeles obituary. Nothing useful. Generic funeral home notice. She tried 8247 Wonderland Avenue history. The results made her blood run cold. The first headline, Judy Garland's secret Laurel Canyon love nest. The bungalow where Dorothy hid from the world. Sarah's hands shook as she clicked the link. The article was from a vintage Hollywood blog. It showed a black and white photograph of the bungalow in the 1960s, pristine and charming. The caption read, Judy Garland reportedly rented this property under an assumed name. Between 1966 and 1967, during her final years in Los Angeles, neighbors claimed to see her coming and going late at night. The bungalow's owner at the time, Margaret Brennan, never confirmed or denied the rumors. Sarah read faster. Judy Garland, born June 10, 1922. Died June 22, 1969. She died. Sarah's fingers trembled as she turned the combination lock. 06, 22, 69. The lock clicked open. Sarah lifted the lid. Inside were stacks of documents in plastic sleeves. Photographs, reel-to-reel tapes, and jewelry. So much jewelry. Diamonds caught the light from her phone, throwing rainbow fractals across the bedroom walls. Sarah lifted the first document. It was a contract between Judy Garland and MGM Studios, dated 1939. Original. Signed in fountain pen. The paper was thick, official, embossed with the studio seal. Beneath it, another contract, then another. Each one documenting terms that made Sarah's stomach turn. Hours of work, drug provisions, weight requirements, penalties for compliance. She'd heard the stories about how studios treated young stars, but seeing it in writing, in legal language, was different. These weren't just contracts. They were evidence of institutional abuse. Sarah set them aside carefully and pulled out a photograph. It showed a teenage Judy Garland on the set of The Wizard of Oz, smiling for the camera. But her eyes looked hollow, exhausted. Another photograph. Judy in the 1960s, sitting in this very bedroom. Sarah recognized the gold. Damask wallpaper. Judy looked directly at the camera, no makeup, her face gaunt and sad. Sarah's hands found a leather journal. She opened it. The first page, in Judy's handwriting. If you're reading this, I'm probably gone. Margaret promised to keep these safe. The studio can't destroy what they don't know exists. Tell the truth. Tell them what they did. Sarah read entry after entry. Judy described being given amphetamines to stay awake and barbiturates to sleep. Being told she was too fat, too difficult, too demanding. Being sexually harassed by producers. Being controlled by contracts that gave her no autonomy. The entries dated from 1966 to early 1969, just months before Judy's death in London. Sarah's eyes blurred with tears. This wasn't just Hollywood memorabilia, this was testimony, evidence, history. She turned to the tapes. There were 6 reels, each labeled in Margaret's handwriting. Conversation 1, March 1967. Conversation 2, May 1967. Sarah had no way to play them, but she could guess the content. Judy had documented everything. She'd trusted Margaret to protect it. Then Sarah found the jewelry. 3 pieces in velvet bags. She opened the first bag and gasped. A diamond necklace. The stones were enormous, each one easily 3 carats. The setting was platinum, intricate and delicate. Sarah recognized it immediately from photographs. Judy had worn this to the Academy Awards in 1955. The second bag contained ruby earrings. The third, an emerald bracelet, felt heavy and cold in Sarah's palm. She searched on her phone. Judy Garland Academy Awards necklace value. The results were immediate. The necklace alone had sold at auction in 1972 for $50,000. Adjusted for inflation, it would be worth over $350,000 today. But that was before. Now, with provenance and the connection to Judy's documented abuse, collectors would pay millions. Sarah's chest tightened. She could sell 1 piece, just 1. That would be enough to get an apartment, buy Mia clothes that fit, pay for the field trips. But as she held the necklace, she realized something else. These weren't just valuable objects. They were evidence Judy had deliberately hidden. If Judy had wanted them sold, she would have taken them to London. Instead, she'd left them here with documentation of abuse. This was meant to be revealed. Sarah carefully repacked everything into the steel box. She needed help, professional help. But who could she trust? She locked the bungalow and drove Mia's school, arriving early for pickup. While she waited in the parking lot, she searched for entertainment lawyers in Los Angeles. Most wanted $500 consultations. But one firm, Rothstein and Associates, had a note on their website. Pro bono work for estates and inheritance disputes. Bernard Rothstein, the lawyer who'd called her about the inheritance. Sarah dialed the number. A receptionist answered, and Sarah asked for Bernard. "I'm calling about the Brennan estate. I found something in the property. Something significant. Hold, please." 2 minutes later, Bernard's voice. "Miss Chen, what did you find?" Sarah hesitated. "I need to know you can be trusted. I've practiced estate law for 43 years. I've never broken confidentiality." Sarah took a breath. Judy Garland's personal effects. Contracts, photographs, recordings, jewelry, hidden under the floor. Silence on the line. Then, "Don't touch anything else. Don't tell anyone. I'll be there in 20 minutes. What's your location?" Sarah gave him the address. "Miss Chen, if this is what you say it is, you're in possession of items worth potentially $50 to $100 million. Perhaps more. This changes everything." Sarah's vision blurred. 50 million. 100 million. She couldn't process those numbers. "There's more," she said quietly. "Documents about abuse. About what the studio did to her. I think that's why she hid them." Another pause. Then, "This isn't just about money. This is about justice. Legacy. I'll be there soon. Don't leave the property. Lock yourself in your car if you feel unsafe." Bernard arrived in a silver Mercedes. He was in his 70s. White hair neatly combed, wearing a suit despite the afternoon heat. He carried a leather briefcase and moved with surprising speed up the driveway. Sarah met him at the door. "It's in the bedroom." Bernard followed her inside. When he saw the steel box, his expression shifted to something like awe. He knelt down, pulled reading glasses from his pocket, and began examining documents. He worked in silence for 15 minutes. Sarah watched him lift each contract, read carefully, set it aside. When he found the journal, he read 3 pages and stopped. "My God," he whispered. "Do you understand what this is? Evidence? History? primary source documentation of systemic abuse in Hollywood's golden age. Combined with these contracts, Judy's testimony, both written and recorded. This is the kind of archive universities and museums would fight over. He looked up at her. And the jewelry alone is worth millions. But together, as a complete collection with provenance, you're looking at $200 to $250 million. Conservative estimate. Sarah's legs went weak. She sat down hard on the floor. That's not possible. The Wizard of Oz is one of the most beloved films in American history. Judy Garland is an icon. Her abuse has been discussed for decades, but always secondhand. These are her words, her evidence. Collectors would pay anything, but more importantly, institutions would pay anything. The Academy Museum, the Smithsonian, the Library of Congress. He carefully closed the box. We need to secure this immediately. My office has a vault. We'll document everything, photograph it, create a proper inventory, then we decide what to do. What about Margaret? Sarah asked. She protected this for 50 years. Why leave it to me? Bernard smiled sadly. I handled Margaret's affairs for 2 decades. She was a private woman, but we talked sometimes. She said your grandmother was the only person in Los Angeles who treated her with dignity when she worked as a housekeeper. When Margaret got pregnant out of wedlock in 1963, most employers would have fired her. Your grandmother helped her find housing, kept her employed, and never judged her. Tears streamed down Sarah's face. She'd never known her grandmother well. The woman had died when Sarah was 5. Margaret never forgot that kindness. And when Judy Garland showed up at her door in 1966, desperate for somewhere to hide from the press, Margaret said yes. They became friends. Judy trusted her with everything, made her promise to keep it hidden until enough time had passed that the truth wouldn't hurt her children. The children, Sarah repeated. Liza Minnelli, among others. Margaret waited until they were all well into adulthood, until the people who ran MGM were dead, until enough time had passed that revealing the truth would only serve history, not revenge. Bernard stood. She chose you because she believed you'd do the right thing. Sarah's phone buzzed. A text from Richard. Heard you're squatting in that dump. Don't embarrass the family more than you already have. She showed Bernard the message. His jaw tightened. Family can be cruel. Did he know about the inheritance? Yes. He was contacted first. He refused it. Then he has no legal claim. This is yours. Completely. But Sarah, you need to understand something. The moment word gets out about this discovery, your life will change. There will be media attention. Legal challenges. People who want a piece of this. Some will claim Judy's children have rights. Others will say the studio does. Collectors will make offers. Some legitimate, some not. What do you think I should do? Bernard considered. First, secure everything. Second, get a team, an entertainment lawyer, an archivist, an appraiser. Third, decide what matters to you. The money, the legacy, justice for Judy? Sarah thought of Mia, sleeping in the back of the Honda, of the field trips she'd missed, of Richard's smug face. I want to do what Judy wanted, tell the truth, but I also need to take care of my daughter. Then we do both. We work with museums or archives that will preserve this and make it public. They'll pay handsomely. You can negotiate terms that protect Judy's legacy while providing for your family. This isn't a choice between money and morality. It's both. They loaded the steel box into Bernard's trunk. Sarah followed him to his office in Century City. By the time they arrived, Bernard had made calls. A team was waiting. An archivist from UCLA, a rare memorabilia appraiser, and another lawyer specializing in entertainment law. They spent 6 hours documenting everything. The archivist handled the documents with white gloves, photographing each page. The appraiser examined the jewelry with a loupe, making notes. The entertainment lawyer reviewed the contracts and whistled softly. These could form the basis of a lawsuit against MGM's successor entities, she said. Wrongful treatment, labor violations, even decades later. This is damning. Judy's children could sue? Sarah asked. Potentially. Or you could donate the materials to an institution with the requirement they be made public. That accomplishes the goal without litigation. By midnight, they had a preliminary inventory and appraisal. The jewelry, $14 million. The contracts and documents, $50 to $70 million at auction, more to an institution. The recordings, potentially priceless if they contained what everyone suspected. The total, Between $200 and $230 million. Sarah sat in Bernard's office, unable to speak. $230 million. She'd spent $50. Her last $50. Bernard poured her a glass of water. Are you all right? My brother said I was an idiot. Your brother was wrong. You followed your instinct. You honored a dying woman's wishes. You're about to change history. Sarah drove back to the Honda where Mia was asleep in the back seat, watched by a shelter volunteer Sarah had called. She paid the volunteer $20 from her last 23 and climbed into the driver's seat. She didn't sleep. She sat in the dark, watching the street, thinking about Judy Garland and Margaret Brennan and her grandmother and the strange chain of kindness that had led to this moment. The next morning, she told no one. She took Mia to school. She went to the diner and inquired about her job. The new manager said they weren't hiring. That afternoon, Bernard called. I've been contacted by 3 institutions, the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures, the Smithsonian, and the Library of Congress. All interested, all willing to negotiate. What do they want? To acquire the collection, to preserve it, to make it public. The Academy is offering $75 million. They want to build an entire exhibit around Judy's life and work, with these materials as the centerpiece. Sarah's hands shook. And the jewelry? You could keep it, sell it separately, or include it in the deal. The Academy is willing to go up to $90 million if you include everything. They want the complete archive. $90 million. Sarah thought about Judy, sitting in that bedroom, documenting her pain. About Margaret, keeping the secret for 50 years. About her grandmother, showing kindness to a woman everyone else dismissed. I want 3 things, Sarah said. First, everything goes public. No restrictions. People need to know the truth. Second, part of the exhibit has to honor Margaret Brennan. She's part of this story. Third, I want to keep one piece of jewelry. The necklace. Not to sell, to remember. I'll convey your terms. The Academy agreed immediately. They offered $100 million for the IBI complete collection, minus the necklace. They'd create a permanent exhibit. Judy Garland, the price of stardom. Margaret Brennan would be credited as the guardian of history. The recordings would be digitized and made available to researchers worldwide. The contract was drawn up. Sarah signed it 3 weeks after finding the steel box. $100 million, minus Bernard's 15% fee, minus taxes. Sarah would net approximately $52 million. She told Richard over the phone. His response, "You're lying. That shack was worthless." "You were right to refuse it," Sarah said calmly. "It was exactly what you said. A death trap. Turns out I'm just idiot enough to crawl around a condemned building and look under the floorboards. Funny how that works." She ended the call. Sarah bought a house in a quiet neighborhood with good schools. Nothing flashy. 3 bedrooms. A yard for Mia. She paid cash. She set up a trust for Mia's education. $1 million. Untouchable until college. She donated $5 million to organizations supporting child actors and labor reform in entertainment. She kept $15 million in conservative investments. The rest went into a foundation bearing her grandmother's name, supporting women in poverty. The exhibit opened 18 months later. Sarah attended with Mia, who wore a new dress and held her mother's hand tightly. The centerpiece was the Academy Awards necklace Sarah had kept, on loan for the opening. Next to it, a photograph of Judy wearing it, smiling for cameras while, according to her journal, she was barely able to stand from exhaustion and drugs. The wall text read, "This collection was preserved through the courage of 2 women, Margaret Brennan, who protected her friend's legacy, and Sarah Chen, who ensured the truth was finally told." A reporter approached Sarah during the reception. "How does it feel to have made such a discovery?" Sarah looked at her daughter, who was staring wide-eyed at the Mikavibaims. Dorothy dress from The Wizard of Oz, preserved under glass. "It feels like keeping a promise," Sarah said. "Not mine, but one I was trusted to honor." The exhibit became the most visited in the Academy Museum's history. The recordings revealed Judy describing in detail the abuse, the drugs, the control. Historians called it the most important primary source documentation of Hollywood's treatment of child actors ever uncovered. Lawsuits were filed against MGM's successor studios. Some settled quietly. Labor laws were strengthened. The industry began mandatory oversight of child performers. Judy Garland's legacy shifted. She was no longer just the tragic star who died too young. She became the woman who documented her abuse, who fought back the only way she could, who trusted a friend to tell the truth when the time was right. Sarah kept the necklace in a safe deposit box. She took it out once a year, on June 22nd, the anniversary of Judy's death. She'd hold it, feel the weight of it, and remember that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is spend your last $50 on something everyone says is worthless. Because sometimes, hidden under the rubble and the ruin, is the truth that changes everything. Have you ever been underestimated by the people who should have believed in you? Have you ever taken a chance that everyone said was foolish? Share your story in the comments. And if this journey moved you, subscribe for more stories about courage, justice, and the unexpected ways kindness echoes across generations.